Hello and welcome to Breathwood. My name is David Yates, and today I want to talk about circular breathing. I put out a video a while ago that said, Didgeridoo secret revealed. Circular breathing is not circular breathing. Some people loved that video. That's my most watched video on YouTube. And some people really hated it. And the interesting thing is I went back and watched some of it, and it's time for an update. I actually agree with some of the people who didn't like my explanation. Here's why I do videos like that one. I think it's really helpful when someone learning a new skill understands it. That understanding needs to trickle down into the nervous system and into muscle memory before there's any chance of it working. Now, there are those out there who, through just trial and error, through the kinesthetic, the feeling process of learning, they get it, they stumble into it. But most people's pathway to learning is through the mind, and if the mind doesn't know what in the world is happening, there's a lot less chance of it actually working. So here's an example of why I think circular breathing is worth talking about and why it's so complex. Most people, when they hear of circular breathing, they have this form of circular breathing in mind. Okay? They are imagining a single drone that doesn't change, and the breath happens smoothly in that process. Then they go and try to play. They start to learn the mechanics of circular breathing, and maybe they get something like this. And let's say they're my student. I see them playing that, and no, they're maybe not perfect yet, but in my mind, they're actually circular breathing already or very close. But because they're thinking that the sound should be perfectly continuous, they're missing the fact that they're actually doing the right movements. Okay, so let's get clear about what the movements are and what's going on here. When we blow the drone, it comes from the lungs. The pressure comes from actually comes from muscular movement. The contraction of the diaphragm, the movement of the muscles around the ribs, the intercostals, those widen space in our chest, which allows the pressure of the atmosphere to move into the lower pressure area of our lungs, effectively forcing air into our lungs when we create more space. Then we reverse the process, relax the diaphragm, tense the intercostals, and force that air out. So that system is like a bellows. You take a breath in, and you blow it out. And at some point, you need to breathe in. One tip, never breathe in your mouth if you're still learning to circular breathe. Only your nose. So you have this bellows system of the lungs and the muscles around your torso. It opens and fills with air, and it pumps the air out, and then it needs to replenish with air and pump it out again. So that's the main drone. That happens a good portion of the time. But while we're filling the bellows with air again, we need the sound to continue. And since this is not available, you have to bring the air from somewhere else. And this is the first reason I say circular breathing is kind of a misnomer, because you can only breathe in or out of your lungs at like once. In or out. Not at the same time. Wow, see, I can't even say it right. You can only breathe in or out at once. Not in and out. Doesn't work. few people have hinted that maybe you can keep your lungs open so that the alveoli can be transferring air. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. You can breathe in or you can breathe out of your lungs. While you're breathing out, you're making the drone. While you're breathing in, we need a different way to make the drone. So we close off the back of the mouth where the back of the tongue lifts up and closes off with the soft palate. That's where that uvula is hanging in cartoons. They use it like a punching bag, you know? The little hangy bit. That area closes and creates a chamber where the air then can be squeezed into the drone. So some people think of circular breathing as chamber breathing. I might also call it continuous drone, continuous outward pressure. Continuous blowing doesn't quite work for me because I think of blowing as coming from here, like blowing out birthday cake candles. But it's a continuous vibration of the lips with air that comes from either this chamber or this chamber. Two main options. So chamber 1 and chamber 2. So the practice that needs to happen is closing the back of the mouth. That's the most important piece. Ang, back there. Ang. You trap the air. Ang. And then squeeze it forward. This part can come from a few different places around the face. Cheek muscles, jaw muscles, tongue and throat. And that's hard to do because it's hard to see. The tongue is effectively lifting in the back, and I feel a little bit of a plunger-like motion pushing air forward. That's the second chamber. You could practice making a drone with just this movement if you are good at watching your own breathing. So no breathing in or out aloud. Only the air in your mouth. If you're doing it right, you should be able to just breathe in or out. I did another video about this phenomenon that air is everywhere. If your mouth opens, there is air. You don't even need to breathe for air to be in your mouth. The pressure of the atmosphere just puts it there. There's air. If I close my mouth, I've trapped air. If I close off the back and I create some pressure by squeezing somehow, the air moves hopefully forward. So when you see someone or yourself go to circular breathe, and they've got the drone, and they expand the cheeks and the mouth, and they take a breath and the cheeks collapse, that's because the back of the throat, or not the throat, the back of the mouth, the top of the throat area, back of the tongue, it hasn't closed off. It's allowed the pressure to flow backwards. You got to catch the pressure and push it forward. So one thing you could do is play, expand, close the back of the mouth off with ang, the back of the tongue, ang, and see if the drone continues just a little tiny bit. You want the pressure always moving forward. So again, we come back to that term, continuous outward or continuous forward pressure. And I really do feel like we're messing around with pressure. If you've heard of a thing called back pressure, that's when the structure of a didgeridoo has internal resistance to the air you're blowing into it. Higher back pressure means it's like a valve helping hold the air back so that it doesn't just leave your mouth in a big whoosh. Low back pressure didgeridoos are a little bit harder to learn to circular breathe on because they're not holding back the pressure in your body. Air moves because of pressure, so we're playing with pressure. So I keep saying the word pressure so that you get that in your mind. This isn't just a breathing thing, this is a pressure thing. If you're not able to circular breathe yet, it's because you're losing pressure somewhere in your body system. And my guess is it's most likely that back of the tongue area. Ways to strengthen that are to say ah-ng, 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 ah-ng. Lips together though. Fogging a window motion. Keep the mouth open. Breathe in the nose, out the mouth. This gets the movement happening. But the movement usually happens with buzzing lips. That creates pressure. And the movement of the tongue back there, working against pressure, will tend to feel more challenging than or no pressure. So the next thing you could maybe add is an F sound. So again, I'm going, but through an F sound. And when you get it right, you should get a little movement of air when you close off the back of your mouth with your tongue. If you suffer from sleep apnea, this exercise is pretty good because it's helping you strengthen all of this area back here, which collapses in sleep. You could make a pursed lip shape so you can feel the air on your hand. And do that same motion, ah-ng, 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 and see if you can get your tongue to kind of push air out of your mouth and forward. Okay, so back to the didge. People hear this. And they think, my sound has to stay the exact same. That's a bit misleading because the didgeridoo is really just a resonance chamber for what's happening at your lips and inside your body. It doesn't do anything on its own. It just resonates when you find the right vibration that it likes. So when you're playing from your lungs, this whole space is open. It's an open chamber with a bit of a valve here. When you're breathing, creating pressure for a moment from your mouth, you've made a smaller chamber. So there's a little bit of a change in the tone. Newer players might not hear this, but experienced players do. There is always a slight change in the tone, and even if you get it almost close to perfect, let's say your drone sounds 100% perfect and clear, you might get the mouth drone, we could call it, to 99% because there's always a little bit of that closing off of the back of the mouth. 99.9 even, if you're a master. There will always be at least the sound of the tongue and throat area closing off. So, don't aim for perfectly smooth drone. Instead, aim for a sound that continues uninterrupted, even if there's a modulation to it. That's great. Later on, that can turn into rhythm. When I learned to circular breathe, I did not learn a smooth breath. I put it in a rhythm. My teacher had me go do, 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 squeeze. So we actually created a sound with the pressure on purpose. That helps with this pumping action that you need to develop up here. So the circular breathing process is really create some space for pressure to build, then squeeze, breathe in, and then start the drone again before that sound runs out. You can do that in 2 parts. Get ready, and then squeeze. You can do it more smoothly, where it's kind of like open, squeeze, breathe, continue. And you can do it all in one quick punch kind of motion, where you prepare, squeeze, breathe, and continue, all in what feels and sounds like the same instant. Lungs, expand, contract, breathe, continue the sound, all in one motion. None of these techniques are the right or the wrong technique. They're all useful and they're all really applicable in different situations. If you understand that pressure comes from here, then momentarily from here. If you understand that it's okay for the sound to modulate while squeezing, if you understand that you're using pressure from your mouth and it has to be captured from the back, then you're more likely to start to get closer to what we call circular breathing. But really, I think updating that term in our minds to something like continuous pressure would be really helpful. And that's why I do the videos I do. So there you go. There's a little bit more on the secret of didgeridoo playing and circular breathing. If you have any questions or comments, concerns, let me know. If you want to show me your progress in a video clip and send it to me, I'll gladly offer you some feedback. If you want to support more videos like this or get access to videos that only patrons see, join me on Patreon. And if you want to share your progress and have others cheer you on, then the Didgeridoo Learning Community on Facebook is also a great place to connect with others. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for all your support, and happy playing.